Something has just happened that should not be possible. 3E Atlas, the interstellar wanderer we have been tracking for months, the visitor that entered our solar system on a path designed to escape it forever, has begun to slow down. Not a tiny adjustment, not a subtle drift. This is deliberate braking on a scale that defies every natural explanation we know. If you're captivated by the mystery of 3E Atlas and want to see more mind-bending cosmic stories, smash that like button and let the universe know you are. Watching every click helps keep the search for the unknown alive. For the past 11 days, 3E Atlas has been shedding speed at a rate no comet or asteroid could ever achieve on its own. It has lost more than 2.8 kilometers per second of excess velocity. Let me be clear about what that means. When an object comes from deep interstellar space, it arrives with momentum that cannot be altered except by the gravity of the bodies it passes. But 3E Atlas is not just reacting to gravity. It is resisting it, countering it, changing its fate. A natural object does not do this. A comet does not decide to slow down. An asteroid does not carefully trim away kilometers of speed over days and weeks. What we are witnessing is controlled, sustained deceleration. Something is guiding it. Something is powering it. Something is choosing to remain within our solar system rather than slip back into the endless dark between the stars. This is why the scientific community is alarmed, why the analysts are whispering, and why people inside major space agencies are beginning to panic quietly. Because whatever 3E Atlas is, whatever intelligence or mechanism drives it, it is demonstrating intentional maneuvering far beyond our technological abilities. And the question we all must confront is simple yet terrifying. Why is this object slowing down? Why is it choosing to stay? The answers are not clear yet, but the implications are enormous, and this is only the beginning. To understand why this sudden braking is so astonishing, we need to look at what 3E Atlas was supposed to be doing. When it entered the inner solar system, it arrived on what astronomers call a hyperbolic path. That means it had more than enough speed to escape the sun forever, to slingshot around it once, and then disappear back into interstellar space. A simple pass-through, a cosmic tourist. But that is not what is happening anymore. Well, for weeks we watched its excess velocity steadily diminish. What began as a comfortable margin above escape speed has been whittled down day after day as if the object is applying a continuous invisible brake. At first, some experts insisted it must be a measurement error, a glitch in the data, but independent observatories separated by oceans and continents all reported the same thing. The deceleration is real. The loss of velocity is sustained. The trend is unmistakable. If this continues, 3E Atlas will not escape. It will not leave. It will transition from a runaway visitor to a captured object bound to the sun, just like every planet, asteroid, and comet that calls the system home. But here is where things become far more unsettling. The braking is not random. It is not chaotic. It is targeted. No, the current direction of its motion combined with the exact pattern of its deceleration points toward a very specific outcome. An orbit that crosses the same region of space Earth occupies, an orbit that places 3E Atlas in our neighborhood again and again in a rhythm not unlike resonance. And this is not speculation. And the best orbital modelers we have, the same teams who guide spacecraft millions of miles with needlepoint precision, are running the simulations over and over. Every version that assumes continued braking gives the same result. A bound orbit that repeatedly brings the object into Earth's vicinity. And that raises a question nobody wants to say out loud. Is 3E Atlas deliberately positioning itself near our planet? Because if that is true, then this object is not just staying in our solar system, it is choosing to stay near us. Kenote, now let us talk about what it actually takes for an object to do what 3E Atlas is doing. Slowing down in deep space is not simple. It is not a gentle tap of the brakes. To shed the kind of speed this object is losing, you need energy, immense energy, more than what we used to send astronauts to the moon, more than what any chemical engine humanity has ever built could provide over such a long sustained period. This is why the scientific community is quietly losing its composure. To move from a hyperbolic escape path to a bound orbit, an object must bleed away kilometers per second of velocity. That is a maneuver so demanding that even our most advanced spacecraft cannot do it without massive fuel reserves. Yet 3E Atlas is doing it smoothly, precisely, and continuously without showing any signs of propulsion as we understand it. No exhaust plume, no bright thermal signature, no visible mass ejection, nothing. It is altering its own fate in complete silence. Whatever system is powering this deceleration is something we have never seen before. Kenote, and that forces us to confront a truth many experts have tiptoed around. 3E Atlas is not behaving like a passive rock of ice and dust. It is behaving like a craft, a vehicle, something under control, But perhaps the most concerning element is not the technology itself. It is the timing. You know, 3 Atlas began this dramatic braking immediately after its closest approach to Earth. It flew through our inner system, gathered data, observed our planet, our satellites, our signals. Then once it had seen enough, once it had passed the point of maximum proximity, it began slowing down as if what it learned during that moment changed its purpose. You know, as if the decision to stay was made because of what it saw here. You know, what did it detect? Our cities, our radio chatter, our technological footprint, our division and instability. Something convinced it to alter its course, to abandon escape, to remain within reach of Earth, and whatever the answer is, we are not prepared for the implications, because this is no longer just an interstellar visitor passing through. Oh, this is something making a choice. A choice with consequences humanity has never had to face before. The moment scientists realized the braking was intentional, the conversation shifted from astronomy to strategy. Because once you accept that 3 Atlas is maneuvering with purpose, you must also accept the next reality. We cannot influence that purpose. We cannot redirect it. We cannot stop it. Whatever it plans, we are simply observers. Inside major space agencies, the tone has changed. Quiet alarm has escalated into genuine fear. Not because 3 Atlas has shown aggression, but because it has demonstrated capability on a scale so far beyond ours that the balance of power becomes meaningless. Now think of it this way. If this object completes its transition into a bound orbit around our Sun, it becomes a permanent fixture of our cosmic neighborhood. A presence we did not invite. A presence we cannot remove. A presence that moves with precision we cannot match. And its projected path is not some distant harmless loop. The orbit it appears to be shaping crosses the very region Earth travels. That means repeated encounters, predictable returns, a rhythm of proximity. Imagine an object powered by technology we cannot understand passing near Earth again and again on a schedule set by something other than nature. That reality has every major government on edge. Diplomatic channels are active around the clock. Space-faring nations are exchanging data, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes strategically. Some see opportunity. They wonder if staying might lead to contact, knowledge, or technological advancement. Others see danger. They worry about surveillance, interference, or worse. Fear and ambition are swirling together, forming a tension the world has never known before. And beneath all that geopolitics lies the scientific unease. The people who study orbits, propulsion, and interstellar travel are confronting an uncomfortable truth. 3 Atlas is using a form of thrust that does not resemble anything in our catalog of physics. If it is expelling mass, we cannot detect it. If it is generating heat, it is doing so in a way that eludes our instruments. It is rewriting our understanding of what is possible simply by existing. I know. But perhaps the most unsettling part is the silence. It has not attempted to communicate. It has not signaled, broadcast, or responded in any detectable way. It simply moves. It observes. It chooses. And right now it is choosing to stay. What does that mean for Earth? What does that mean for our future? Those answers remain hidden inside an object drifting through space with calm, incomprehensible precision. But one thing is ineptional clear. 3I Atlas is no longer just passing through our solar system. It is entering it. It is joining it. And possibly it is positioning itself near us for reasons we do not yet understand. As the object continues its silent maneuvering, the question weighing most heavily on every expert is this. Why would 3 Atlas choose to stay near Earth? The possibilities range from hopeful to deeply unsettling, and none can be ruled out. The benign interpretation is that 3 Atlas is conducting an extended study. If a civilization capable of crossing interstellar space discovers a world radiating radio signals, covered in artificial lights, and surrounded by an expanding shell of satellites, would they not want to observe more closely? From a strictly scientific perspective, Earth is fascinating. We are a young technological species, noisy, energetic, and rapidly evolving. A long-term orbit would allow continuous study in a way a single flyby never could. No. But there are other interpretations. If 3I Atlas is part of a broader network, perhaps scouts sent ahead of something larger, remaining near Earth could serve as a relay, a monitoring outpost, or an anchor for future activity. This is exactly what humans would do if we found a developing civilization light years away. We would stay, we would watch, we would prepare for future communication. Right? Then comes the more cautious line of thought. Perhaps its presence is not just curiosity but assessment. Maybe what it observed during its closest approach. Our weapons systems, our conflicts, our environmental instability, triggered a decision to maintain vigilance. From their perspective, we could be a developing species that needs monitoring. Not because we are a threat to them, but because we might become a threat to ourselves or others, you know. And of course, the darkest scenario lingers at the edge of every discussion. What if staying is the first step toward direct involvement? What if 3E Atlas is not just observing but preparing? Not for invasion. If they wanted to harm us, they would not need caution or subtlety, but for intervention, influence, or presence that we cannot control or oppose. Even a benevolent intervention by a civilization millions of years ahead of us would reshape human history in ways we cannot predict. You know, NASA, the military and intelligence agencies are not united on how to respond. Some argue for immediate communication attempts, confident that curiosity is the driving force behind the object's behavior. Others urge restraint, warning that desperate outreach could signal panic or vulnerability. And woven through all these debates is the one truth no one wants to voice too loudly. Whatever 3 Atlas intends to do, we cannot stop it. You know, we cannot change its path. We cannot force it to leave, and we cannot hide anything from it. If it stays on its terms, not ours. You know, this reality is reshaping global strategy, science, and philosophy all at once. Humanity is realizing that for the first time in our history, we are not the observers of the universe. We are the ones being observed. But here's where things get downright unsettling. Astronomers expected 3I Atlas to keep shedding momentum if it were breaking apart, but instead its velocity drop stopped completely, as if whatever force had been slowing it suddenly released its grip. Natural processes don't behave like that. Ice doesn't just decide to stop sublimating. Tidal stresses don't pause because they feel like it. Fragmentation doesn't work on a switch. Yet 3I Atlas acted exactly like it did flip a switch. One moment it was losing speed at an impossible rate, and the next it was coasting again, as though whatever was influencing it had finished its job. The last object we saw behave anything like this was the Visitor that passed by years ago. And even that didn't shift its momentum this abruptly. Something was guiding 3 Atlas through phases that mimic intelligence, timing, and control. And the deeper scientists dig into the data, the more they're beginning to realize this object isn't following the universe's rules. It's following its own. And just when researchers thought the mystery had peaked, something even stranger appeared. As 3E Atlas transitioned out of its sudden deceleration phase, telescopes picked up a faint but unmistakable pattern in its reflected light. Not a smooth gleam, not the chaotic scatter you'd expect from fractured debris, but a repeating pulse, steady, evenly spaced, almost rhythmic. Objects don't flash like that by accident. For the signal to stay consistent while the object was tumbling through space means one thing only. The structure of 3 Atlas contains flat reflective surfaces arranged with purpose. Nature can craft beauty, chaos, spirals, fractures, but it does not design aligned planes that catch sunlight in a repeating sequence. That's geometry. That's precision. And if that pulse wasn't random, and more scientists agree it wasn't, then someone or something engineered those surfaces long before we even noticed the object was coming our way. Right? As that rhythmic reflection grew clearer, observatories around the world scrambled to compare the pattern against every known natural explanation. Getting asteroids, no match. Fragmented comets, not even close. Solar glints from uneven surfaces, the timing was far too precise. But then came the moment that froze entire teams in silence. The pulse wasn't constant. It was evolving slowly, deliberately. Each cycle grew slightly longer. As if the object were adjusting its rotation by fractions so small they had to be measured with high-precision instruments. Space. Rocks don't adjust anything. Dead objects don't fine-tune their spin. Yet, 3 Atlas behaved like it was stabilizing itself after a maneuver, almost as if it had completed a stage of its journey and was now settling into a controlled drift. The shift was so subtle that no one caught it at first. But once the data lined up, the pattern became undeniable. The reflective signature wasn't just changing. It was responding, not reacting to sunlight, not reacting to thermal, responding to its surroundings as if it were aware, as if it were preparing. And the deeper analyst pushed into the spectral readings, the more one unsettling truth began to harden. The next weeks will define a new chapter in human history. If 3 Atlas stays, we will live in a solar system we do not fully control. But we will adapt. We will observe. We will hope. And we will prepare for whatever comes next, knowing that intelligence far beyond our own has entered our neighborhood and for the first time is making choices that affect us all. Well, because this is no longer just a story of a visitor.